Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we are very excited to present to you our Capstone project here in collaborations with our project sponsor, TeamStack.ai. Next. To guide you to our presentations today, this is our agenda. We're starting with the team introduction and then the overview of the TeamStack.ai, which is our project sponsor, and then we dive into the project itself. What are the steps that we follow and the outcomes to achieve? And the last step, we will demo our prototype. So let me start to introduce our team. I'm Nadya, I'm the project manager of this project. And then we have Tanush, who took on the role of data analyst. And lastly, we have Tirtha, our product designer. So let's introduce TeamStack. So TeamStack is a software as a service solution, that provides to track and measure the team success quotients or TSQ. They leverage the data, the AI, and also the team collective intelligence to provide an actionable insights to help the organization achieve their goals and optimize the team performance. On the first sprint here, we focus on the problem understanding. There are a few key steps that we undertake throughout this process. Number one is stakeholder interview with Susan here and also Satya, the CTO of TeamStack, to understand their challenges and also their goals. On the second step here, we walk through the system functionalities to familiarize ourselves with its functionalities and also with the user experience of the systems. Number three is we're creating a user persona to better understand the potential end user that is fit for TeamStack. And the last one is the most important one, which is the problem identifications, which is how to provide the data visualization of the LCM model that is clear and simple and also enable user to understand the data effectively. So what is LCM model? LCM model here stands for license, motivations, and capability. As you can see, the triangle over here is depicting of the each factors that is correlate with each other, how each factors support each other to create a conditions for team success. So license here is the formal or the informal permissions given by the employers to the employees to act according to their responsibilities. While the motivation here is the desire to apply the capabilities and use the license. And lastly, the capability is the skills and the knowledge of the employee to perform their task or their role. Next, I hand it to Tanush.
Thank you, Nadya. So, for the second sprint, we began by exploring similar models to the LCM. One particular model that we found was the AMO, which is ability, that is competence and expertise, motivation, that is desire to apply effort, and opportunity, which are environmental factors enabling performance. We aligned the two models, noting that AMO is HR focused while LCM is leadership focused. This helped us understand LCM's application in project settings, particularly how autonomy, skills, and motivation interact to define performance within teams or organizations. Next, we conducted a competitive analysis of TeamStack against platforms like Workday, HiBob, Trackstar, and WorkLeap, OfficeVibe, etc. Unlike these tools, TeamStack emphasizes AI-driven predictive analytics to forecast project outcomes and prescribe actionable improvements such as budget adherence, scheduling. This proactive approach sets it apart from traditional HR platforms. For visualizing the LCM model, we went along with these data visualization elements such as radar charts, heat maps, scatter plots, bar graphs, and 3D plots. Further, we designed a unique visualization using a 3-variable visualizer where we placed all the three parts of the model on the corners of the triangle, and in the middle of that was the performance and how will it be calculated. In Sprint 3, we went along with the FIFA team management screen. As we all know, FIFA is a multiplayer soccer video game. And as you can see here, the radar chart depicts all the 6 performance parameters that are needed to judge a player. And below that, they use bar graphs along with the score, the rating that each player got. So here we use Ben Chilwell as our example. Using this as an inspiration, we created radar charts using the data points that we got from TeamStack and tried to create different patterns as well as bar charts that could depict the components individually. Next, we created our low fidelity prototype. So this was our first version of the low fidelity prototype where we used the TeamStack theme to create our radar chart. We placed everything accordingly. Obviously, we did not like it. So further, we went with the second low fidelity prototype where we had different tabs indicating different levels of the prototype. Next, once we created a final low fidelity prototype, we presented it to different users where we touched upon areas such as general understanding and clarity, usability and ease of navigation, insightfulness, and practicality and decision making. We got a positive feedback of that the to section and the insight sections were very helpful as it gave action items to all the executives. The bar charts were easier to read as they displayed all the numbers individually. And then historic data visualization is effective and it captures attention of the executive. The negative feedback that we further incorporated in our prototype was that the flow was not that intuitive for a lot of users. The visualization should include some kind of subtext where they're able to understand what each and every component stands for, and color coding could capture the attention of the executive. Now handing over to Tirtha, who will present the prototype.
Thanks, Tanush. So finally, we'll be looking at the iterations and prototyping that we did. So on the left-hand side, you see here, this is the rating that is there from 1 to 10. First of all, we send out a survey to all the employees and they rate themselves and they rate the other employees as well. And this is what the ratings mean. On the right-hand side, we see 3 different types of managers being balanced, permissive, and micromanagers. We'll be diving deeper into it later. Moving forward to the prototype. So the TeamStack LCM visualization, we want to understand it on 3 different levels: individual, team, and department. So does anybody here know who quoted this? Can anybody guess? And do not say Wayne Gretzky, because it's literally written there. Anybody?
Michael Scott.
Yes, so it was Michael Scott who said this, and today we'll be entering the universe of Dunder Mifflin Paper Company. We'll be looking at 3 different characters: Stanley Hudson, Michael Scott, and Jan Levinson. Stanley Hudson is the salesperson. He would like to see his own individual score. He would like to compare the persona. So manager persona, it means understanding how he is being led. So the main point of this entire visualization is to make sure there's high level of transparency. Then comes comparison with team average, and then lastly, Stanley Hudson cannot see the numbers or scores of the other salesperson due to privacy reasons. When it comes to Michael Scott, he's the regional manager. He would like to see his own score, compare with manager persona, and understand how he's being led. He can compare team members with average or against each other. And lastly, there will be no visibility outside his own leadership since he leads the Scranton branch. Then we come to Jan Levinson. Here, she can see her own score, compare manager persona, and compare Northeast team average with specific employees or with the Southern region. So now we have Stanley Hudson here, whose motivation is pretty low. And as you can see here, he would like to sleep. So this is the actual visualization. On Stanley's screen, he can see only one tab, which is employee rating. And on the first one, the radar chart that we took, inspired by FIFA, as Tanush mentioned earlier, we can see his motivation is super low and license and capability are still high. You can see similar information in the bar chart. On the right hand side, you can see generate insights button where you can clearly see the insights. So manager or Stanley himself, he can get insights in literally seconds. Below you see historical data, so how has his motivation gone up or down over the months in the past year. Next, we will be first looking at his manager persona. So here, so earlier we saw how he has rated himself and how other people have rated him. Here we can see that clearly Michael Scott needs to get involved and he needs to increase license. So more involvement from his end would mean that Stanley can perform better. Again, you can see the insight on the right hand side. Now I'll switch off manager persona. Now we'll be clicking on the compare button. Now he can compare his own score against the sales team average. So we can see here that his performance is lower than that of the team average. Now moving forward, we have Michael Scott. So Michael Scott is pretty good at sales. Now we'll be looking at his scores. Here he has 2 accesses, first one being employee rating and second being teams rating. On the employee rating tab here, Michael Scott thinks probably that he's a really good manager, but clearly he is not, because how his employees and subordinates have rated him, his capability is super low and his license is low. But his motivation remains high for some, we wouldn't ever know why. So we see this on the radar chart and on the bar chart, and again we can see the historical data. Now again, we can compare with the manager persona. We can see that here we can compare with permissive and micromanagers. Moving forward, switching off manager persona, clicking on the compare button. Here Michael Scott can not only compare himself with the sales team average, but he can also compare two different employees that are working under him. So we have chosen Stanley and against the team average. So here you can compare Stanley against the team average. Now we have Jan Levinson. Jan Levinson is pretty good at identification, recognizing if the other employee is performing well or not. I underestimated you. So here we have Jan Levinson's screen. She is overall a balanced individual, and you can see that how other employees have rated him and how she has rated her, and how she has rated herself. Same with the historical data and the LCM indicator bar. Moving forward, you switch on the manager persona. You can see that she's overall a balanced manager. It also means that her manager is doing pretty well. That person is also a balanced individual. Moving forward, from the employee rating, we move to the team's rating now. So she is again comparing sales team average, and she's selected the options under compare, and she's made the comparisons here. The functionality overall remains the same, just the people that she's comparing changes. Here under department rating, she can first see Northeast sales, the one that she's leading, and next she can compare it with Southeast and understand how, as you can see here, Southern region is performing better in terms of motivation. So the main insight from here could be it's essential to see training and employee engagement activities that are being conducted in the Southern region. Lastly, this is the end of our master's journey and the Capstone project. So I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them. Handing it over back to Nadya.
Thank you, Tirtha. So our last sprint here is the business model and solutions pitching. Using the business canvas framework, we identify the value propositions for TeamStack, which is the to measuring team performance through team and sustainability alignment and emotional intelligence. By these value propositions on the right side, which is the business side, their key activities needs to be platform development, also refining their AI algorithm, and having a customer support, which is bring us to the key resources. They need a software development teams, data analytics tools, and having an intellectual property. On the key partnership here, previously the TeamStack is built because of the assignment from Susan and Satya previously on the Harvard, so they have a key partnership with the Harvard. Also, industry partnership to remain relevant to all the sectors. On the left side, about the customer, to build their customer relationship, TeamStack here do a consultative relationship and doing a long-term partnerships with their customer. That brings us to the customer segments, which is all businesses relying to complex teams to achieve their objectives. Currently, on the historical side, they are already working with the pharmaceutical and also infrastructure industry. And how to bring their value to their customer is using the channels, which is sales teams B2B, engagements, partnering, and also the customer success teams. The last one is the cost structure here. What are their expenses is about platform development, data storage and processing, and also the customer support and team operations. And the last one is the revenue stream. How they get their revenue is by subscription fee and data usage. So what we have learned for us during this Capstone project, there are like 5 key points here. We are learning to put the user at the center of innovations, and we learn the value of prototyping in iterative development as we all continue with this 6 sprints that we are doing. And also number 3 is stakeholder collaborations. with your project sponsor is the key, and the importance of anticipating risks and also the being agile of every changes that we took or the pivot that we took, and also the balance between innovation and practicality because we don't have all the resources in the world. And the last one is the recommendation for TeamStack.ai. There are 4 points here. So there's recommendations that we take for TeamStack is to enhance their platforms moving forward and help organizations to align their team performance and optimize their organizations to achieve their goals. That's it from us. Thank you.
Very good. So before we do the Q&A, Susan, why don't you come up and share your insights, what you've learned, and your experience with the project.
Sure. Yeah, so just a little bit of background about me first. So I have been in corporate America my entire career until 3.5 years ago. I decided to leave corporate and start my own tech company from scratch, from an idea. And not just tech, but AI. So now I'm leading a startup, and it was so incredibly exciting to be invited to be part of this program and to work with this team. So we've been struggling with this license motivation capability model for about 4 months. We couldn't figure out how to make the data come alive. And so when we looked at the data, it was not evident what were the insights and what were the takeaways. And so we wanted our product to be very accessible and very, very easy to immediately get the manager to be able to understand what's going on. Because as we talked about, coming from corporate America, being an executive, executives all have the attention span of a tiny little fly. So it has to be quick and easy. So we worked on it, we couldn't figure out what to do, so we gave it to them to work on. And then I think the first meeting we had, they were expecting us to tell them what we had done, and we refused to do that because we didn't do it well. So we wanted their good ideas instead of our ones that weren't working. So it was great working with them. Lots of really cool ideas, lots of things we hadn't thought about. And what we're going to do next is actually just take theirs and put it into our product and test it with our customers, and then make some tweaks and see what else we need to do. But I think in addition to just working with these folks and working with Christina and Akarsha and everyone, it was really fun to teach them kind of why we're doing this, right? Like, what's the purpose behind it? And, and get them to understand, how important this is that teams work well. And I'll leave you with this one fact, which is the number one reason for success or failure of every company and every entity is their teams. And that's why we are focused on teams. And that's why we are not just focused on teams, but tying team performance to those business outcomes. But it was great. You guys were awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. So now it's time for Q&A for the team. So what was the biggest challenge? Or some other people are going to have. So what was the biggest challenge? I'll let other people ask questions. What was the biggest challenge that you had to face?
I think I would say number one being identification that leadership is absolutely subjective. So how one employee is led and how he perceives it versus how other employees perceive the same leadership is completely different. So this particular visualization, like Nadya also mentioned on one of the calls, that it brings us back to human behavior. It's an AI tool, but it brings us back to human behavior, which is the most important part. When it comes to the challenge, I would say as a team, we sat down and brainstormed multiple times on what is the best way to visualize this. As you saw earlier, we created triangles and circles. I think that was the most difficult part. And then because all of us were also learning Figma while we were on this particular project, we did it side by side. So it was a great learning experience and rewarding too, I would say.
Yes, so I loved your complete presentation and I love the prototype especially. So I wanted to know how many iterations you performed to get the final output, which is so amazing.
For us, there are a lot of prototypes, low fidelity prototypes that we create. I
Like
think like
117,000.
Oh my God.
I would
170,000 and then minus the 30,000, so it's 117, and then minus 100, which is 17, and then
Yeah.
I think it's about I think 4 actually.
Yeah.
I think like there are 4 low fidelity prototypes that we created, but on the third prototypes we started to create the user interview. We use it for the user interview because again we don't have all the time in the world, so it's time for us to go in the user interview phase. And then using that user interview, we go back to Susan and Satya and telling us what are the interview feedback are, and then how they want to incorporate those feedback and their feedback to create the last prototype that we have here.
Oh, thank you.
This is such a brilliant presentation. So my question is, who is your favorite office character?
Jim Halpert. Yeah.
Hands down, Michael Scott. Did
you watch?
I'm with you.
Oh, then, I mean, Jen. It has to be Jen.
Yeah. Fair.
I'm sorry I didn't watch it. I will watch it after this.
Any other questions?
I've got one. What's sort of the incentive for customers to adopt the LCM model? How do you communicate the value of that model?
So it's the best way to actually govern performance of an individual as well as a team. So we have various levels at which we're going to show this data. So the data that we collect, so we collect data on like multiple levels, and each level is accumulated from an individual score. So it is detailed to the extent where you can judge the performance of an organization as a whole as well as an individual, and you can see what kind of improvements you can get. So if you can go to the slide, I'll just do it. I don't know if that's visible to you, but if you see that there are different shapes, so those shapes are actually pretty intuitive, which can help help someone understand the performance of an individual. So as we showed, Stanley's chart, it was left skewed. So that showed that motivation is the least in this case, and that there is something that needs to be done. So as soon as you see something unusual, that makes you would want to improve that entire thing. So these 3 components ultimately judge the performance of an individual. That's the value that it's trying to get.
I want to add, so based on your presentation, obviously the source is from Susan. There are 2 factors that is driving the team success. One is the traditional factors, and the other one is the emotional intelligence and safety psychology. So on the traditional is based on your team capability and your team's knowledge and skills. But 2/3 of that factors is the emotional intelligence and also the psychological safety, which is trust, and also the value of sense of belonging for the team. So for the whole completely align your team performance with the company objectives, when you want to make your employee feeling value and enhance the sense of belonging, that's why we introduced this LCM model to incorporate all these driver factors to drive the team success. So that's from. Anything you want to add, Susan? Maybe.
So the LCM model came from Harvard Business School. 15 years of research. We boiled down kind of all the things that drive team success to those three components. And then, as Nadya is saying, underneath those 3, there are 27 factors around emotional intelligence, so that you can see underneath it what specifically with license is the one that's driving performance. And then the other piece of this is that we also predict the probability of success of a project or a company. And so you can also see which factors and which skewed shape of the LCM is driving the predictions.
Yeah, I just want to say awesome presentation. Absolutely love for reference the old chart and the scoring. Out of curiosity, right? Performance needs to be measured in every organization. My automatic thought, and maybe I'm biased, but my thought is performance is probably a thing that enterprises usually focus on rather than it's something that they can focus on because they put in the money for it, compared to smaller organizations or SMEs or startups, for example, because they might be tracking that on a smaller scale like Excel or whatnot. My first question is it primarily targeted towards enterprise or mid-market organizations? And I'm seeing a lot of potential like integrate this with HR functionalities as well. Is that another piece that is also being considered as part of the organization and the strategy or GTM strategy that it's going towards?
Shall I answer that? Okay.
Sorry.
So the first one is kind of what is our target ideal customer from a company standpoint? And it's really as simple as any company that requires complex teams to deliver whatever it is they're doing. So I actually have had 3 startup companies approach me in the last 2 weeks to say, we'd like to use this because our teams are so dynamic and you get pretty instantaneous feedback on how your people are doing and how they're doing with each other. So it's really more kind of, what do your teams have to do? If they have very straightforward tasks and it's not very complex, probably we're not going to add a lot of value. And certainly enterprise, but small companies as well. And then the second one, we are this weird but wonderful bridge between HR and delivery. So we link the human capital, so the HR side, to the business delivery. So it's both. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, that was wonderful. And thank you so much for flying all the way from
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Thank you.